Hello, everyone. Welcome to a training session for the Data Privacy Week. This is for the Cascade Technology Alliance, as well as Northwest Regional ESD and Multnomah ESD. I'd like to welcome you. My name is Mike Potter. I am a IT security analyst for Northwest Regional ESD, also working with the Cascade Technology Alliance. And my focus today on this little talk was going to be about K12 apps, services, and privacy, specifically about student privacy, but it really isn't just limited to students because all of us that work in schools or do anything with schools, any community members, can have their privacy impacted when apps, services, and other technology providers don't respect privacy. So it's something we want to take special note of when we look through where to find online resources and other kinds of software. Um, we have sort of our learning outcomes for our session. We're going to review what kinds of personal information and data can be collected by apps and online services, and also what kind of data from students is legally protected in the United States. We want to identify where we can find privacy controls and settings on different devices. We're going to consider the privacy implications of things like hidden GPS coordinates and other metadata in files, and also things like smart devices with microphones. Finally, we're going to review some resources for finding privacy-aware K-12 apps. There's quite a few good organizations that we can use, both to check the apps that we may be already using or to find new ones to meet new needs. Protecting privacy in apps and websites, um, the first thing that we encourage folks to do is look for the apps, extensions, the websites, the services that your school district has reviewed and approved for students and teachers to use. These can vary district to district, and if you're working at a specific district, starting with their approved list is the way to start. There is the risk that non-approved websites and apps may collect user information, and this is not okay for students whose name, photo, audio, video recordings, and more are all protected under US law, the law known as FERPA. Um, the, there are also exceptions for things that are called directory information that may be allowed to be shared, but unless an app or a website or a service has a education focused account, they sometimes just don't take those kinds of concerns into account with especially free memberships. Um, the There are app and site settings within your web browser and devices that can act to protect privacy. And what these are focused on in a few broad areas are location services. That is, your device is aware of your physical location and sends that to a service for perhaps identifying the store closest to you. There are also things like access to your device or your account contacts. You may have seen when you install a new app on a smartphone that you'll get asked, like, if you want to give it access to your account, to your contacts, or to your camera, or to your microphone. And it's tempting to just say yes, yes, and work on and keep going because you want to use the app. But it's very important to focus on, does that app need that? Is there a reason why this particular app or website wants all my contacts? Frequently, the reason they want all your contacts is so they can send messages to your friends to get them to sign up and get that same app. So you may not want to share all those contacts with that website or app. Um, we have listed here four of our kind of main device types for computers. That is iOS or iPad OS for iPhones and iPads, Chrome, and this applies both to the Chrome web browser um, as well as things like Chromebooks or Chrome boxes. You can type in that Chrome // extension in the address bar of the browser and get to the list of extensions and the privacy settings that are applied to them. In Windows 10 or 11, there are two places you can look, the settings app and then look for privacy. And then also in the settings app, there is the apps subcategory, and that controls what you see a list of installed apps and what permissions they have, and you can change them according to what you would prefer. Finally, on Macs, if you go to the system settings application and look for privacy and security, or just search for privacy, you can get sent to the right area where you can adjust which apps and websites have access to these, what can be, especially in the case of, say, a camera or microphone, pretty sensitive access. Um, One thing that some people are aware of is when you take pictures on, say, your smartphone, you will often have the GPS location, the coordinates, included in that picture by default. This can reveal a teacher or a student's home address or other personal or sensitive locations to anyone who can view or forward that picture. Now, this is the technical term for this is EXIF metadata, and some social media websites may remove this information before publishing a picture publicly. And so that when someone on, say, Facebook would look at this picture, they would not be able to see the EXIF metadata. However, those companies may indeed retain that information they take from those files in their own systems. And there has to be a degree of trust that you actually believe that they will be removing that information. If you want to be sure, you may want to look into some utilities that are able to edit or even delete EXIF data, so that the location of the where the picture was taken or the date or other details aren't available, including the type of device used. Another aspect of privacy, another area, involves voice technology, and this involves smart speakers, things like the Amazon Echo or Google Home speaker. These are essentially internet connected microphones. They are always listening to the voices around them and uploading the audio to servers on the internet. Why they are always, people don't realize they're always listening because they need to hear those activation words. They're different for each device to know that, oh, you're speaking to me. I need to pay attention, but they're listening all the time for that activation code. Um, Unfortunately, K-12 students just cannot consent to being surveilled this way in a classroom. Um, Now we try to come up with, because these are popular devices, we try to come up with a way that's a little more privacy sensitive that would work better for students. And this is one example of how we can use a voice technology, Siri, on an iPhone or an iPad, um, can be used in a more privacy sensitive way if you have the correct settings. And here's what they are: going to settings and Siri and search, and you want to turn off the option to listen for Hey Siri. This avoids the device's microphone being active all the time, listening for those Hey Siri words. In the same location, you can also turn on the option to, say, press the home or side button to activate Siri. So that's a way to manually activate it with essentially a button, as opposed to doing it purely by voice. Lastly, you should turn off the option to allow Siri when locked. This means that only those who can unlock your phone or iPad can use Siri. Otherwise, Siri will answer questions with potentially sensitive information in the answer on your phone, like, say, a contact detail. As long as you do not have that option turned off, if you allow Siri access when the phone is locked, people can use it who aren't you, to get information off the device and invade your privacy. Finding privacy aware software and services can be a bit of a difficult situation. There's a lot of services and things out there. How do you know what are the best for protecting our privacy? And our recommendation from CTA is, before you purchase or renew software, and that includes something that's maybe an online subscription or a web-based service just as much as something installed on a Windows machine or a Chromebook, we ask that you check in with CTA support and let us to work together so we can find the best solution. We might already have software or a service that provides what you need, and we already have paid for. So all we need to do is get it installed or get an account configured for you. Much faster process than finding something new and getting it approved and getting it paid for. CTA can also help you review software or services to see if they protect student privacy and school or ESD information. We look at things like the terms of service, the privacy policies, and if the company or developer meets any specific education guidelines and laws like COPPA and FERPA. Then we add the software or service to our approved software list so we can have it available for other people at our organization. This is something I want to flag at the bottom of this slide that's very important. It's very, very common. Many, I would say, websites state that they cannot be used by people under the age of 13. And it's that applies and that is binding even if the website is free or even if they don't collect any names or other identifying information. If the terms of service say that the website cannot be used by someone under age 13, we as the school or ESD need to respect that and find another resource that is intended for our students. Here's where it'll come in handy having the PDF version of these slides where you see these many different links of to different organizations and lists. These are organizations that evaluate apps and software developers and services for K-12 use. Common Sense Media or Common Sense, the first two, have an extensive amount of information, both for intended for schools and intended for parents. And we'll see a little more on the next slide about some of these. But here's two different links to uh, essentially the same kinds of things, just focused on a different audience, whether it's a school looking at software or whether it's parents looking at a list of apps that Common Sense Media recommends. I Keep Safe is another organization, very similar aims and goals, and it's always good to cross check with some of these different lists because there's some differences between how they evaluate software. And it gets you a better sense about what things are involved. There's also a voluntary organization, the Student Privacy Pledge, and we have a link here to those software developers who are signatories for the Privacy Pledge. I will mention that this is a voluntary organization. It has no enforcement capability. It's just these developers have promised, have pledged to try to pay attention to these very many issues about student privacy. So I take it at least as a positive sign, even though it may not be proof of anything. It's a good sign. And the last two bullet points here are to the same website, but I'm going to skip to the bottom one. This is a way to look at one way that school districts can publish approved software lists. And this last link on the slide is for the Beaverton School District here in Oregon and what they have listed as their approved software. You can also use that search national link, the second to last bullet point, to look instead by district, look by software developer to see who have signed privacy agreements with other school districts across the country. If they've signed agreements with other districts, it tends to show that they're paying attention to these issues. They know how to handle sensitive information and private information from students. And it's a good cross reference for the other recommendations on the other websites. Google also has their Be Internet Awesome program that includes tools for the classroom, slides and flashcards and so forth for teachers and families to use to review a lot of the concepts about if it's not sometimes more involved than just being aware of when to share information and what information and where. And to get children to think about it and is very important, but also as adults, we need to be thinking about it too. So it's something that we recommend all these different resources. And one last screen just to show how much there's really available. Various articles about what teachers need to know about privacy and educational data. And I really would recommend, as much as possible, looking at these different articles and resources to get a sense of the broad nature of the information that many of these tools collect and the steps that we can take to limit what information we give. And that's the kind of the crux of privacy online, is to control as much as we can what information we put out, and when we're in the school environment, to act to protect the students and their information that we are entrusted with. So we're really grateful for all of you who have decided to take a closer look at student data privacy issues as well as other security issues when it comes to students and using technology in our schools.